For years, people wondered why Alfonso Ribeiro, the actor who played Carlton Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, never worked with Tyler Perry. He was famous, talented, and available, yet while dozens of actors were getting second chances through Perry's growing empire, Alfonso was nowhere to be found. Now we might finally know why. A new $260 million lawsuit has been filed against Tyler Perry, accusing him of inappropriate behavior and using his power to control actors. These allegations come from actor Derek Dixon, who claims Perry used roles and opportunities to pressure him into uncomfortable situations. Around the same time, actor Christian Keyes said Perry offered him $100,000 just to take his clothes off. No touching, just watching. That's when people started looking back at Alfonso's story differently. He never named names, but years ago, he shared cryptic messages about the industry, warning others to be careful who's really watching and saying he wouldn't sell his dignity for a role. Fans used to think he walked away from acting because of typecasting, but now is looking more like he chose to stay silent, to protect himself. And the more you look into it, the more his absence starts to feel like a message. Let's go back to the beginning, before the lawsuits, before the headlines, and figure out what really happened. Before the silence, before the headlines, Alfonso Ribeiro was everywhere. As Carlton Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he wasn't just the goofy sidekick. He was the heart of the show's comedy, delivering sharp timing, unforgettable one-liners, and of course, the legendary Carlton dance. He became a household name, and for a while, it looked like his future in Hollywood was set. But the moment the show ended in 1996, so did the momentum. Casting agents didn't see Alfonso as a versatile actor. They saw Carlton, and only Carlton. No matter how hard he tried to rebrand, the industry kept him in a box. Offers slowed to a trickle. Serious roles were off the table. Directors didn't want risk. They wanted fresh faces, flash, and people without strong identities tied to past characters. Alfonso was still in his 20s, but already fighting to restart a career that felt frozen in time. He once said publicly, "Most of the world can't get past Carlton." And that wasn't just a complaint, it was a reality. Typecasting had slammed the door shut before he could even try something new. It didn't help that the early 2000s were a strange time in Hollywood. Legacy actors were being pushed out, studios were shifting gears, and while new opportunities were rising, especially in black entertainment, not all of them came without strings attached. That's when Tyler Perry began building an empire, and to many, that empire looked like a lifeline. For actors like Alfonso, Perry's growing studio was a sign of hope. He had control. He had influence. He was creating roles for black talent that Hollywood ignored. To most, it seemed like a perfect fit. But what looked like opportunity on the outside may have felt very different behind the scenes. By the mid-2000s, Tyler Perry wasn't just making movies. He was building an empire. What started with stage plays turned into box office hits, TV shows dominating BET, and eventually, a massive studio built on former Confederate land. He became one of the most powerful figures in black entertainment, known for giving overlooked actors second chances. For someone like Alfonso Ribeiro, boxed in by typecasting and eager to reintroduce himself to the industry, Tyler Perry Studios looked like the perfect opportunity. And it should have been. Perry was hiring fast, he had full creative control, and unlike Hollywood, he didn't play by anyone else's rules. He was producing work for and by black talent, and many saw him as a savior for actors stuck on the sidelines. But despite being one of the most recognizable black TV stars of the 90s, Alfonso never got the call. No guest role, no cameo, nothing. It was a quiet absence, one that didn't make headlines, but started raising questions among fans. Why didn't two of the most well-known black names in entertainment ever work together? Insiders say Alfonso did try. He made efforts to align with Tyler Perry's growing influence, but that collaboration never happened, and no one really understood why, until other actors started speaking up years later. Around that same time, whispers about Perry's casting process started to grow louder. People began suggesting that talent alone wasn't always what got you the job. Some said there were other expectations, unspoken ones, that had nothing to do with acting. Then, in 2021, actor Christian Keyes came forward with a disturbing claim. Perry had offered him $100,000 to take off his clothes. He didn't ask for anything physical, he just wanted a watch. Suddenly, that unexplained gap between Alfonso and Perry didn't seem like a coincidence anymore. While other actors were getting their shot at reinvention through Tyler Perry's productions, Alfonso Ribeiro was nowhere to be found. No guest appearances, no cameos, no recurring roles, not even a whisper of a behind-the-scenes collaboration. For someone with Alfonso's fame, charm, and resume, that kind of silence was hard to ignore. At first, fans chalked it up to typecasting. Maybe he'd given up on acting altogether. Maybe he just wanted to focus on hosting and family life. But even then, something didn't sit right. Other former sitcom stars with far less recognition were landing roles in Perry's shows, so why not Alfonso? Then his social media started to change. He never said names, never pointed fingers, but his tone became noticeably sharper. In one post, he warned, "Sometimes the audition is just a setup. Be careful who's really watching." In another, he wrote, "I didn't come this far to sell my dignity." These weren't just cryptic quotes, they were messages, and they came at a time when rumors about Tyler Perry's casting process were beginning to bubble beneath the surface. Some fans dismissed Alfonso's distance as personal preference, but others started connecting the dots. Why would someone with his legacy avoid the biggest Black-owned studio in the country? Especially when that studio was offering exactly the kind of roles that could have helped him break out of the Carlton box. When Christian Keyes went public with his story, it added fuel to the speculation. If that kind of proposition was happening behind the scenes, maybe Alfonso's absence wasn't about rejection. Maybe it was about refusal. A quiet refusal. A line drawn in private. A choice to walk away rather than play along. And in hindsight, that choice may have protected him from something much darker. As more disturbing stories surfaced, the industry realized Alfonso might have known exactly what he was walking away from, and why. In 2021, everything shifted when actor Christian Keyes broke the silence. He went public with a story that caught everyone off guard and made Alfonso Ribeiro's old warnings feel chillingly real. Keyes claimed that Tyler Perry showed up at his apartment and offered him $100,000. Not for a role, not for a script, just to take off his clothes. "I don't even need to touch you," Perry allegedly said. "I just want to see you." At first, it sounded too wild to be true. But Christian didn't stop there. He shared messages, texts, quotes that painted a disturbing picture of what went on behind closed doors. What looked like an opportunity to most people turned out to be something very different for the actors living through it. And suddenly, Alfonso Ribeiro's vague posts made more sense. He never accused anyone, never told a full story, but when he tweeted things like, "I didn't come this far to sell my dignity," people started looking back with new eyes, especially since his comments came around the same time these alleged offers were being made to other actors. Was Alfonso approached with something similar? Did he walk away before things escalated? We don't know for sure. He's never gone public with names or details. But as more actors come forward, the pattern is becoming harder to ignore. Tyler Perry's defenders claim this is just resentment, bitter actors upset about being passed over. But how many bitterness stories follow the same exact formula? Christian Keyes was successful. Alfonso Ribeiro was a primetime icon. Both of them had every reason to say yes to a career revival, but neither of them did. And when people with that much to lose walk away without fanfare or noise, it raises the real question. What made staying silent seem safer than speaking out? That question would explode in 2025, when actor Derek Dixon filed a lawsuit that shook the entire foundation of Perry's empire. On June 14, 2025, the silence officially ended. Actor Derek Dixon filed a $260 million lawsuit against Tyler Perry in Los Angeles Superior Court, and the allegations were explosive. According to court documents, Dixon accused Perry of repeated misconduct spanning from 2019 to 2021, a timeline that lined up with the rise of Perry's BET series, The Oval, where Dixon was a regular cast member. But this wasn't just a workplace dispute. Dixon described a disturbing pattern of behavior that began the moment Perry handpicked him from a crowd. At first, It was framed as mentorship, a chance to help a new actor break into the industry. But the dynamic allegedly turned personal, controlling, and coercive. The complaint claims Perry invited Dixon to his home in Atlanta, where boundaries began to blur. One night, Dixon says Perry entered his guest room uninvited, touched his legs, and later climbed into bed with him while he slept. When Dixon resisted, he says Perry offered him a role on the Oval, a role that came with strings attached. According to Dixon, Perry sent flirtatious messages, asked invasive personal questions, and later crossed physical lines. One of the most haunting claims? Dixon says Perry told him, "If you ignore me, your character dies." Screenshots of alleged text messages began circulating online. Some reportedly included lines like, "No straight man would cook dinner for you unless he wanted to F you," and "I would hope that you'd let someone hold you and make love to you." While the authenticity of these texts is still being debated, some were filed directly with the court, giving the claims more weight. By 2024, Dixon said he was suffering from PTSD and filed a formal complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. He left the Oval shortly after, saying the emotional toll was too much, and this wasn't just about Perry as an individual. The lawsuit also named Tyler Perry Studios and TPS Production Services for negligent hiring and oversight. The entire structure of Perry's empire was suddenly under scrutiny. That's when people started revisiting every actor who had quietly walked away. And once again, all eyes were back on Alfonso Ribeiro. Why Alfonso's quiet exit, once seen as a career lull, now looks more like a calculated move for survival. For years, fans assumed Alfonso Ribeiro had simply stepped away from acting. After all, he seemed happy, hosting game shows, raising a family, and staying out of the Hollywood drama. It looked like he'd moved on. But behind the polished TV smile and cheerful public appearances, something deeper was happening. Because Alfonso didn't just fade away, he quietly removed himself from the places everyone expected him to be. He never took roles at Tyler Perry Studios. He never showed up for a guest spot, a cameo, or even a partnership. And now, with everything we've learned, that absence is starting to feel less like a coincidence and more like a warning. In Hollywood, silence is often strategic. For Black actors especially, calling out a powerful figure, especially another successful Black mogul, can mean career suicide. Speaking up risks being labeled difficult, jealous, or worse, being erased completely. And Tyler Perry wasn't just another producer, he was a billionaire, a media darling, backed by Oprah, BET, and major networks. Going up against someone with that level of influence? That could end a career overnight. So maybe Alfonso stayed silent, not because nothing happened, but because speaking up wouldn't change a thing. Or worse, would cost him everything. Even one of his close associates hinted that Alfonso had seen things behind the scenes. Things he didn't want to be part of. Instead of blowing it all up, he made a different choice. No drama, no headlines, just distance. It was easy to overlook at the time. Fans were too focused on why he wasn't acting anymore. But now, with lawsuits piling up, and actors like Christian Keys and Derek Dixon speaking out, Alfonso's distance makes sense. He didn't expose anyone. He didn't tell his story. But maybe he didn't need to. His absence says enough. When you start connecting the dots, Keys, Dixon, Ribeiro, a bigger picture forms. And it's not just about missed roles. It's about what it really costs to say no in Hollywood. One actor walking away might be a fluke. 2 might be a coincidence. But 3? That starts to look like a pattern. Alfonso Ribeiro, Christian Keys, Derek Dixon. Different men, different careers, different paths, but all intersecting at one name, Tyler Perry. Each of them tried to break into or return to the spotlight during the same period Perry was rising to full power. Each of them, in one way or another, walked away from that opportunity. Not loudly, not with press conferences or legal teams, at least not at first, just a quiet step back, a refusal to play the game. And now, with lawsuits and leaked messages surfacing, their decisions make more sense. Christian Keys spoke directly. Derek Dixon is going to court. Alfonso, he spoke through silence. But that silence, the missing roles, the cryptic tweets, the public distance, tells a story on its own. a story about how power operates behind the scenes, a story about the lines some actors wouldn't cross, even if it meant risking everything. Because this wasn't about one awkward conversation or one strange encounter. It was about control, about unspoken expectations disguised as opportunities, about casting decisions that weren't just based on talent, and when those expectations weren't met, the door slammed shut. Look at the pattern. Multiple young black male actors praised for their looks, charisma, or legacy. Each one faced a choice: compromise or walk away. The ones who didn't play along, silenced, erased, replaced, and in Alfonso's case, completely shut out of the very system that claimed to uplift actors like him. That's why his story matters now more than ever. Not because he named names, but because he never had to. His decision not to be part of the machine is starting to feel like the clearest warning of all. When actors say no quietly, it's easy to miss the message. But when you line up the facts, the posts, the stories, it becomes obvious. Alfonso didn't disappear. He dodged a storm. In a business where fame means everything, walking away is rare. But Alfonso's choice may have been the smartest and strongest move of his life. In Hollywood, silence is usually seen as weakness. When someone disappears from the spotlight, people assume they've been forgotten or pushed out. But sometimes, silence isn't weakness at all. Sometimes, it's protection. That's what Alfonso Ribeiro's story is starting to look like. Not a fall from fame, but a calculated retreat. He didn't make headlines with shocking interviews. He didn't name drop or go after anyone in the press. He didn't blast his experiences online for attention. Instead, he quietly stepped away from an environment that didn't feel right. And now, 15 years later, his absence is finally being understood for what it was: a boundary. While others chased the spotlight, Alfonso chose dignity. While some actors were offered roles with disturbing strings attached, he chose to walk away with his self-respect intact. That's not something Hollywood usually rewards. But in the end, it may be what saved him. With lawsuits piling up and stories leaking from once silent actors, the curtain is being pulled back on a system that operated in the shadows for too long. A system where power wasn't just used, it was abused, and where saying no came with consequences. But Alfonso said no anyway. He didn't need to be part of the machine. He didn't need a role bad enough to trade his values. And even if no one noticed back then, they're paying attention now, because in a world where actors are often pressured to go along just to stay relevant, walking away is bold. It's rare, it's risky, and it's exactly what Alfonso did. Now, as Tyler Perry prepares to defend himself in court, and as more details come to light, Alfonso's silence no longer feels like a mystery. It feels like a message, not a missed opportunity, but a quiet stand against something bigger than anyone knew at the time. And maybe the actors who speak loudest aren't always the ones with the biggest headlines. Sometimes, the ones who walk away are the ones we should have listened to all along. A closing reflection that ties it all together and leaves viewers with a powerful, thought-provoking ending. Alfonso Ribeiro didn't slam any doors. He didn't hold a press conference or light up social media with accusations. He didn't need to. His decision to step back, to stay quiet, and to avoid certain studios, it was never about fading away. It was about surviving something the public is only now beginning to understand. In hindsight, the signs were always there. Cryptic messages, no collaborations. A long, quiet absence from an empire that claimed to uplift black talent. And now, with actor after actor speaking out about coercion, control, and crossing the line for roles, that silence makes more sense. Christian Keys spoke out. Derek Dixon took it to court. Alfonso Ribeiro walked away, and maybe that was the loudest message of all. In an industry that feeds on access and opportunity, it takes strength to say no. It takes even more to do it without applause. While others were pulled in by promises, Alfonso held the line, not out of bitterness or ego, but out of self-respect. And that matters, because the more we learn about what happens behind the scenes, the more we realize that not every missing name is a failure. Sometimes it's a choice, a refusal, a quiet form of resistance. Alfonso didn't chase headlines. He didn't seek revenge. He just removed himself. And now, in the wake of lawsuits, leaked texts, and broken silence, his absence says everything that needed to be said. This wasn't a career detour. It was a message we missed. And in a time when truth is finally breaking through the cracks, those who walked away quietly, cautiously, and with purpose may turn out to be the ones who were right all along. Because in Hollywood, not every warning comes with a spotlight. Sometimes, the strongest message is the one that was never shouted.